Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Over Goals podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Montgomery, and today we're doing a year in review. We're so grateful for so many wonderful conversations in 2025 with so many top-notch podcast guests. Today, we're going to give you a few sound bites from some of our favorite conversations over the past year. Los Angeles Rams football coach, Sean McVay. UCLA women's basketball coach and National Coach of the Year, Corey Close. Heisman Trophy winner, Eddie George. Musician, Matthew West. Best-selling authors and top-notch keynote speakers, John Maxwell and John Gordon. Head coach of Maryland men's basketball, Buzz Williams. Author, speaker, Liz Bohannon. And top author and keynote speaker, Molly Fletcher. Let's dive in to some of our favorite moments from 2025. So talk to us about that. For somebody who's so relationally gifted, you got all these people pulling on you, they want your time, and yet my circle has become a dot. What has that been like for you? And what would you say to the leader who's also trying to navigate a lot of relationships, people pulling on me? I'm trying to go deeper with fewer, but man, Buzz, how do I do that with a sense of honor and humility and treat people the right way?
Yeah, really good questions, man. Like elite level questions. And I mean that sincerely. I'm a connoisseur of this sort of genre of speaking and questions and answers, man. I really appreciate it. A few things. My circle is a dot. And I've never listened to Jim Rome's radio show ever. I know he mentioned that when we were together. I love the guy. And, when he begins to talk about what he does or specific examples, I don't know. I just know his spirit and I know how he's treated me. And he was treating me that way long before I was, quote, worthy of being on a show. And so, it's like once every 2 years, he'll send a text. He'll call my assistant and go, hey, can Buzz come on? And I've always told him yes. But this has only been like 4 times, like over the last 15 years. And so when I saw Jim Rome at the event at John's deal at training camp, I'd never met him ever. And so he's in the hotel, we're checking in, and he said, Buzz, and I could hear his voice, and I was like, Rome, what's up? But on the question, a few things. Number one, I want to be a dispenser of love. That's what I want my brand to be. And I think when you're a dispenser of love, you have to realize that different life experiences, good and bad, their definition of love is different. And so if I want to be a dispenser of love, I have to understand that who I'm trying to love, they may not receive my love the way I would receive it because their definition of love is different. And so to that point, in our staff, in our transition, past job, the previous job, the next job, the current player, the next player, the portal, not any of that. No matter who they are, the more you know me, the better you can love me.
You talk often about coaching the heart. And I hear you share examples of where this shows up with your team and your leadership. I know this is a big belief of yours. So walk us through what it means for a coach or a CEO or a manager, a leader of any community, team, sport, etc., to coach the heart.
Well, I it's a phrase we've all had a long time. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think especially for this generation that I'm dealing with, 18 to 23-year-olds. But I mean, what did we start this with is encouragement. I'm 53 now, and my heart still needs to be encouraged. Okay. And I think that, the story really comes from Coach Wooden. I had the amazing, as you know, opportunity to be mentored by him for 15 years. And He used to say something to me that's always stayed with me. He said, you know, Corey, and he actually didn't even like to use the word coach. He preferred teacher, but he said, you know, Corey, you're not coaching people's jump shots. You're coaching people's hearts. And then he said, but you know what? If you coach their hearts really well, usually their jump shots end up pretty good too. And isn't that true in our families and our businesses that, you know, when you are truly loving people well in a whole and genuine and authentic way, what happens to their performance or their productivity or their willingness to grow and change, their growth mindset? All of those things get better.
I would love for our audience to hear this acronym, Eddie, on faith, because this was really compelling. I thought this was one of the better messages just in all of training camp. So can you download that message in just a few minutes for our audience?
Well, I came up with the acronym for faith last year, actually around this time. John asked me to come on his podcast to speak to a group last year, and I was coming off a vacation. And this is during the time that I was trying to figure out, well, what's my one word? And I was stuck on, two. It was faith and trust. And I was like, because of where I was going and being at Tennessee State at the time and, trusting the work that we put in and everything else. So I'm just saying, well, what is faith? Faith can't just be, I have faith. Faith is an action. Without faith, works, without doing the work, your faith is dead, so to speak. And I said, well, what is it? What does living with faith mean? And it's eliminating the distractions and eliminating the doubt, the fear, all of that. So, it's something that you do consistently and along with prayer and having courage. And the F stands for focus. What do you constantly focus on moment to moment? Life is going to hit you from all different angles, and how you respond to that matters. And what you're focused on is what matters. So if you're keeping your eye on that prize, the vision that God has for you, regardless of whether you see it or not, if you think you're getting there or not, is constantly focusing on that.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, John. Are there any of these principles that stand out to you more than others, or any one principle that maybe stands out to you more than the rest?
Yeah, I think there are three of them. Value all people would be the foundational. If you don't value people, you won't add value to them. You don't add value to people that you devalue. And so foundational is, I have to, and when I say value all people, I mean all people. I mean, I value people that would be as opposite of me in values and beliefs. I mean, they would be polar opposites, but that doesn't matter. In fact, I was asked one time, how can you say you value everyone when you don't even know me? And I said, oh, it's very simple. I don't know you, but I'm a person of faith and I know God. And he created you. And he has tremendous value. He wouldn't create you if he didn't value you. And he not only valued you by creating you, but he also gave you gifts to help you be successful. So because God values you, I value you. I don't have to know you because I know God. So that's kind of foundational value in all people. That is by far, I think, where you start. And then I think there are a couple others. I was talking to my grandchildren because I'm mentoring them in this book right now. And, they're young and they've honestly, I'm sad about this, but they haven't seen a lot of high road leaders in their lifetime. And so I'm making sure that they get a picture. What does a high road leader look like? So I was having a mentoring breakfast with them the other day, and we were going over the book. And I asked them, I said, of all of the pictures of a high road leader, which one do you find to be the hardest to live up to or to have in your life? And it was so interesting. That discussion was so good as I listened to them. And interesting enough, they all picked the same, well, almost all of them picked the same one. And that was the one that they had the most difficulty was keeping score. Keeping score. And even in their young lives, they've been taught in our culture to keep score. Well, I did this for them. What are they going to do for me? And one of the characteristics of high road leaders, they don't keep score. I tell people, keeping score is good for games, but it's not good for life.
Mm.
And I can still remember as a very young leader having a relationship with a guy that really had added a lot of value to me. And one day I found out that he was keeping score the whole time. And he was looking at me and saying, "You owe me. My gosh, I've done this for you." And I felt discouraged. I felt out of touch. I felt I could never catch up. And I felt manipulated. But it was so interesting that the kids said, don't keep score. I think the other one, the third one, is do the right thing for the right reason, which is all about motives. And I tell people motives matter because people matter. Since people matter, why I interact and how I interact with people really do matter. And what happens in leadership, Jordan, as you know this, is leaders see more than others see, and they see before others see. Now, if I see more than you and if I see before you, that's what I call the leadership advantage. The leadership advantage means I see a bigger picture. And I not only saw it bigger than you did, I saw it quicker than you did. Now, what does that mean? Honestly, what that means is I'm going to win. And I'm going to win because I saw more and I saw before, that you are already at a huge disadvantage. Now that I know I see more than you and I see before you, now I got to ask the hard question is how am I going to use that information? Am I going to use that to help you win? Or am I going to use that information to help? I can't even keep it. Hey, nothing like high road leader here. High road leader here.
We got it. We're seeing it.
High road leader with a very clumsy person. But if I see more than you and I see before you, I've got to ask myself the motive question. Am I going to use what I know to help you? Or am I going to use what I know to help me? And most people in their leadership positions use what they know to help them, which is always wrong. Now I'm manipulating. You see, when you manipulate a person, you move them for your personal advantage. Well, that's wrong. That's always wrong. There's never a right time to manipulate a person. Now, what leaders do is they motivate people. In fact, if you can't motivate people, if you can't move people, you're not a leader. But when I motivate you, I move you for mutual advantage. And so, we've heard people talk about, if I win, you win. Well, really, I turn that phrase around. If you win, I win.
If you were to give our listeners a couple tips on, hey, when you're a part of an environment like this, here's a couple practical things you should be thinking about or doing either when you're at the event or when you leave the event, because I think you've done this as well as anybody maybe walking the planet when it comes to developing high-level relationships and making these moments count. So would you mind sharing some thoughts with us about that?
I have to be transparent and say I didn't always do that. 2020 was a pivotal time for me because the pandemic happened and I realized that I was spending my life on the road speaking and racing and running and not really developing relationships except with my family. I was so busy. And then the pandemic happened and I started hanging around other guys. We had time because we didn't have anything else. And I became friends with Ed Milet and we spent some time together with a group of other guys, Ken Clothier and Edwin and others, and developed great relationships during that time. And I realized, you know what? This is special. This is important. During that time, people started bringing me into their masterminds to speak. And then I was around these masterminds, watching how they operated, watching how these people connected. And I'm like, wow, I'm staying for a couple of days because I'm speaking and now I'm learning and I'm growing. I'm like, these are fun, man. These are a lot of fun. I'm meeting some great people here. All of a sudden I became very relational, realizing that, wow, like these relationships are important to your life. They reward you in so many ways. They enrich your life. And also, honestly, they are great for business because you wind up doing things together. You wind up helping each other out. Now, when you're going to these events, it's not about what you can get. I always like to say, what can I give when I'm at these events? How can I help? How can I serve? How can I be a resource? And when I'm meeting people, I'm not trying to be, interesting. I'm trying to be interested. And it really is about serving and about helping and about listening. And when you go in with that open heart and open posture, people are more open to wanting to talk to you. And again, I'm always like, hey, let's see what comes out of this. I don't have an agenda. That's the other thing. There's no agenda when I go there. It's who am I meant to meet that will be a part of my life going forward. And I'm just open to it. I pray on it. And I wind up meeting really great people when I go to these events. So before 2020, I don't remember being at any of these events. After 2020, I've been at tons of them. And I can tell you that the trajectory of my life and my work and my career over the last 5 years has been greater than all the years combined.
Wow.
By doing this. It is through great relationships.
There's a loneliness epidemic. You're helping organizations and schools and communities to become more connected and to go deeper with one another. And you've got some real reasons why this matters. So talk to us about connection and community and your work attacking the loneliness epidemic.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned we are in the midst of what the former US Surgeon General would say is an epidemic of loneliness and isolation, meaning more people in America are struggling with chronic, which means sometimes or always feeling lonely. When we hear these things, we hear epidemic, that feels very big. I don't know about you, but when I hear epidemic, I'm immediately thinking like public health policy. And then my next thought is, I don't do that, right? Like, it's just like, that's somebody else's problem or somebody else's job. And so part of what I'm trying to do is one, normalize. We have a lot of misunderstanding about loneliness in our culture. So about 61% of Americans would say they're chronically lonely. And lonely is simply defined, I think even when we hear the word lonely, we can think like, oh, some old cat lady who hasn't left her house in years because she's a hoarder and her front door is being blocked by magazines that she's been saving since the 60s. That's actually not what loneliness means. Loneliness is defined by the perceived gap between the relationships that you need and you want and the ones that you actually have. That's it. That's what loneliness is. And in just that simple kind of psychological state, it's a painful psychological state when we believe we don't have the relationships that we need or want to thrive. The cascading impact that has on our mental health and even our physical health, chronic loneliness. And again, not like being a hoarder who's stuck in your house, but just simply going, I don't think I have the relationships and the friendships and really the safe and secure relationships that I need and want and desire. If you're experiencing that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, the impact that has on your actual physical body is greater than smoking 14 cigarettes a day. It is greater than having diabetes or being obese. Okay, so when we think about health, we as Americans, I think the first thing that comes to mind for us is physical health, which is great. And that's really important. And taking care of our bodies is an important part of having a flourishing life. Really, the last 10 and 15 years, we've grown a lot in our awareness and understanding of the importance of mental health. It's not just your physical body, but mental health is an important part of it as well. There is a third pillar of human flourishing. We literally cannot be healthy, whole humans, and it's called social health. And there is a chance that like 90% of people listening to this podcast will hear the phrase social health and go, huh? I've literally never heard that term. And so my mission and the thing that I am passionate about is really bringing to the forefronts of our culture, of our society, of our understanding of ourselves and one another, the importance of social health and how we can make micro changes in our own life to be more healthy and whole and flourishing.
What has it been like just to lead your family through this season where, so often you're out front and you're winning awards and you're in the spotlight? Talk to us about what that's been like for your family and then how you've stayed grounded in that process.
Yeah, I think I've had some pretty pivotal moments, aha moments for me where it really kind of where I've been challenged or convicted in a good way to think about, man, I feel like so much of our lives is like my wife and my daughters are championing me and dad's out front, you know what I mean? And so over the last several years, I've just felt like God was putting it on my heart to continue to seek out ways to champion other people. And that starts in my own home, championing my wife with her ambitions and endeavors and things that she wants to do. And I got to say, man, like the stuff my wife does, I mean, people might look at me and go, oh man, you're impacting people. But my wife is the proof that every single one of us has a sphere of influence. My daughters are proof of that. My wife, she uses her social media account. And you know what she uses it for? To help raise money to buy school supplies for inner city teachers. She gets on, she found out about an inner city ministry in Nashville, a program that was putting on a camp last week, and they were going to bring these kids from the inner city to this camp and have an experience like all these suburban kids would get to, but they needed some money. My wife goes on social media. I just got to brag on her because she's like, hey guys, we can rally around this. And all of a sudden, what do I see in my front doorstep? No joke, 150 Amazon boxes showing up at my front doorstep. And you know what they're filled with? They're filled with like my favorite snacks, but they weren't for me. Juice boxes, ding dongs, you know what I mean? Ho-hos, all these things. And she rallied her sphere of influence to be about a greater cause than her and for other people. And I think about my daughter, Lulu. Man, she called me and she said, Dad, I'm spending my first semester at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I feel like I'm not going to thrive here. I feel like I'm supposed to do something different. I said, all right, how can I champion you? She said, I think I want to go on a missions trip and take a little break from school. And she went for 6 months and was out in a remote village in third world countries, sharing her faith and leading worship. And I'm like, let's go, man. That's the good stuff. Like she may not be on the radio today, but she was standing in a little village, loving on some kids. My youngest daughter, Delaney, just got back from a 3-week trip to Rwanda where she served at an orphanage. And I'm thinking, I'm the one on the radio, but she's the one helping these kids carry clean water a mile back to where they live. And I'm like, that's impact. Like that impact. And so when I think about even my legacy, I'm not even thinking about what I'm leaving behind musically anymore. Like that's all well and good. And thank God for the ways he's used me through that. But man, like hopefully the impact that's going to pour out and overflow from the West House in the lives that my wife and my daughters are living, man, that fires me up. And I don't know that I could be any prouder than I am today.
What is the thing that you'd want to leave people with, whether it be about drive, leadership, personal development? What's on your heart today or on your mind that you'd love to share with our listeners?
Well, I mean, I think they're here because they're curious. And I would just say, I really think curiosity can create so many chances for us in our lives. It can create so many choices for us in our lives. I think it makes our lives remarkably interesting. And I think we can think about that through the lens of curious about the people that we work with or want to work with, that we live with, that we love, that we serve. And if we can get curious and get inside of their heads and hearts and then serve them and anticipate gaps in their lives, but curiosity about the gaps in the lives of other people. I often tell sales teams, how do you act like you have the business before you have the business?
It's good.
In service of curiosity. So curiosity to me, but also I would say curiosity inside of ourselves around our blind spots, our gaps, things that we can ladder up and level up and do even better. So curiosity to me it's a powerful thing, and it's an empowering thing too.
When you look for talent and you're trying to identify character traits, qualities, what are you looking for in somebody that you want to promote, hire, or work with? And then the other thing that I want to hear is, what are you doing to develop that talent and bring out the best in some of those bright young leaders that you've been fortunate enough to be around?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think the first thing is, when you're looking at just onboarding people in general, you're looking at their character first and foremost, especially when you think about there's inevitable storms that are on the horizon. And when you go through adversity, that's when you see who people really are. So let's make sure we're checking the box on high character individuals. They're servant leaders. They're about the right kind of stuff where our core values are aligned. And then do they have the capacity? Do they have the capacity to teach, the capacity to be able to connect? So we've got to be able to have the character, the capacity, and then ultimately, are we able to communicate, to connect with people? And I think when you've been able to be around so many special people like those guys that you mentioned, they elevate me as much as anything else. And what we try to be able to create and cultivate in our space is opportunities for people to organically be themselves, but let's make sure that we're surrounded by people that, man, I don't want to let you down. I know I'm at my best when I'm around people that we are positively pushing one another. We always talk about a positive peer pressure that we want to put on one another to be able to continuously grow, to push the envelope where, hey, we're able to communicate, to connect. We're able to listen to understand to each other. And I've been so fortunate when good things happen, that's because you're around good people. And it's always about, hey, people over everything. And when you get the right people on board and they're in an atmosphere and environment where they feel like, hey, they're valued, they have autonomy over their jobs, but there's also standards at which we expect to be able to operate with. But I want them to authentically be themselves. You know, we have things that we all really want to be about, but I think the beauty is in everybody being their own individual personality and really being able to ask yourself, hey, I'm at my best when I'm doing what? You know, and we talked about it a little bit last week. For me, that's communicating, that's having the appropriate mindset, that's really enjoying whatever is on the horizon in this journey that football or life brings us on. And, you know, I think when you have the right kinds of people that you're around, your motivation when it's about serving them instead of some of those selfish goals that I know I've struggled with in my previous history, that's when I'm at my best, when I'm around people where you're saying, man, I'm waking up and I don't want to let them down. And all those guys that you just mentioned have been exactly that for me.
This has been another episode of the Growth Over Goals podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Montgomery, and I want to say thanks again for being with us today. Thanks again to John Choate and his team at Storyline Multimedia for all that they do behind the scenes to make these episodes go. Be well, be great. Have an amazing day.